Hi everyone, it's Adrian Plus here,
Yes, and Bridget. Hello.
and this is number 266 in Sounding Shadows.
It is. Yeah, and?
Well, I've been thinking, the other evening we did an evening, didn't we, at our church?
Oh, it was lovely. It was just a thank you, really, for our leader and his wife, who are coming to the end of an incredibly long and good time running the church. So
yeah, it was a nice evening.
It was lovely.
But I was thinking that, as usual, it would have sounded like an entertainment because we use a lot of humour and satire and stuff.
And
well
because we wanted to laugh and we wanted people to laugh and we wanted it to be comfy on one level.
Yeah, but the point I wanted to make was that I realised how serious it is when we were doing it. I mean, we wanted people to have a nice evening, and they did, I think. But actually, someone might have said, "Oh yeah," they might have said, I don't know, they might say about one of our things. Well, yeah, it was entertaining, but there was nothing really serious. Actually, we now use poetry and drama are right in the heart of saying serious things, and in fact, there's a sort of rhythm that's developed where something is funny and then it's serious and then it's funny again.
Well, one of the reasons for that, of course, when we do, and I'm sure there will be a lot of other people who would understand this, we suffered so much from manipulation at one stage in our Christian lives. So we're very conscious, aren't we, that if you do a very moving whatever it is, you move people.
Yeah.
And because it's moving.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not being silly, but that's what happens with a beautiful piece of music or maybe with poetry or with something else. And at that point, you can use that in some way. And we're pretty anti that. So that's one of the reasons. And also we love people laughing.
Yeah.
We love to laugh ourselves. And we do genuinely believe that it's a very, very good thing to laugh gently at ourselves and gently at the rubbish and stupid things that happen around us, because there's a lack of humour in the world at the moment.
Yeah, we talked about that last week or the week before, didn't we? Quite a lot about laughter. But it isn't just laughter. I was thinking about poetry, and one of the very first poems I wrote, really, I mean, at that time, I was writing in order to sound like Dylan Thomas, I think. Because Dylan Thomas was one of my favourite poets of all time. And when I remember when I'd written this thing I'm going to read, I'm not a great poet, never will be, but when I read it aloud to myself, I realised I had a Welsh accent as I read it. And there's something about the rhythm.
You're going to read it now, so this is going to trip you up. We don't want a Welsh accent.
But the bit at the end...
You wrote this way before writing stuff went into books or anything.
Done anything like that,
no.
But what intrigues me is the end of it. Well, I'll read it and see you say what I mean about that. It's called When I Was a Small Boy. When I was a small boy in a small school, with endless legs and ears that widely proclaimed a head full of emergencies. When I clung by bleeding fingertips to 33 plus 9, and cognitive dissonance was just a hard sum. There were only two crimes. The first was shouting in the corridors. The second was to be a fool. And when the bell, the blessed bell, let me fling my body home, I thought I might at least one day aspire to rule in hell. But now I never hear the bell, and part of me will always be a fool screaming in some sacred corridor. Well, that is actually out of date now, in many ways, thank God. But the bit at the end is what intrigued me, that that last bit will always be a fool screaming in some sacred corridor. Well, that's been my hobby for the last 40 years.
I suppose it has, really.
Saying things that might liberate, but also might at times anger or inflame things until you get past the fact that some truth is revealed through recording it.
But when you wrote this, it was for you. And whatever you say about a Welsh accent, it was your voice speaking to you. It wasn't for anybody else, which I find really interesting. I would say, and hanging on to that voice must be one of the most difficult things for people who then end up with their writing or their whatever it is becoming public, hanging on to who you are in the middle of it. And I was thinking about a time, and this isn't we'll come back to the poetry in a minute, but I was thinking about a time when you were going to speak at a very well-known and very posh university. And because you were not very well-known and definitely not posh, in fact, I seem to remember you took the books you were going to sell in a carrier bag.
I could do
you
posh.
could do posh, okay, you could do posh, but you didn't know which way the port went round or whatever it was. It wasn't your environment. And so your feeling was you had to be the sort of person who spoke in universities.
Well, that talk, I remember that talk. I don't remember the detail of it, but I remember it was rubbish. And you're quite right. I mean, these ancient stone walls surrounding me and the people staring at me from the congregation of this chapel, and me thinking, I ought to do something that's befitting this place.
And then you made them laugh, and suddenly.
Well, not then. I didn't. No, that was rubbish.
Oh.
I went back. For some strange reason.
They asked you back.
I was invited back. And I think the chaplain changed. I may be wrong. But they invited me back, and I thought, I can't go through that again.
No.
So this time, I did have lots of laughs in it. And then it was great because it was so much more me as I am.
Yeah.
That's quite right. And it is tempting, though, I suppose, that I don't know. I don't think that temptation continued for too long. I mean, once we realised that people do enjoy relaxing, and one of the key elements in that can be laughter or drama or poetry, which gives you a chance to
I mean, there's no doubt, Adrian, it's no good kidding yourself. I can't write poems. I never could. I remember I won a prize for I Wish I Was a Pig, wallowing in the deep mud when I was 11. And looking back on that, realised there was really
Was that it?
No, there was a bit more, but it was all awful. But I won a prize. I was probably the only one who put a poem in. I don't know. But the point I'm making is we're not all gifted in particular ways. And it is discovering what it is that is you, I think, that's really important. I may feel a desire to try to, I don't know, take something that's huge and turn it into a few words and find the right word. And I know I have ideas, that's not saying one isn't a creative person, but one might not jolly well be a poet or able to capture something, which I think occasionally has been a real gift to people. Not just you, but many poets have managed. One of my very favourite poems is Tiny, and I've loved it for a very long time. And it's by somebody who was born in 1928 called Evangeline Patterson. And the reason that I think I love it is that there's so many gaps in it. How can you describe heaven? How can you possibly describe heaven? And she doesn't. But what she does is put herself there and create so much space. Shall I? It's only little.
No, read it. It's magical. I know.
It's called And That Will Be Heaven. And that will be heaven. And that will be heaven. At first, at last, the first unclouded seeing. To stand like the sunflower turned full face to the sun, drenched in light, in the still centre, held, while the circling planets hum with an utter joy. Seeing and knowing at last, in every particle, seen and known, and not turning away, never turning away again. When I talked about the space, there's actually space. If you come across that poem in writing,
She actually makes
she
the
creates
space, doesn't she?
space.
Yeah.
She's determined that we will not make it fluid,
Mm.
that there will be space in the middle of it.
Mm.
And there's something about that, the idea that you stand full face to the sun, that there's none of the hiding in shadows. You're going to be like a sunflower, full face to the sun with absolute light on you, and you're not going to turn away and hide and crouch and curl up and say, no, it's not me, I shouldn't be here. It's absolutely beautiful in its simplicity, and so much more than the words that are there, I think.
I think that last line is lodged in me forever. Never turn away again, because we know, because of us and because of those we talk to and those who talk to us, that there's an awful lot of turning away goes on. There's an awful lot of thinking, I don't belong, or I don't fit, or I think I'm failing, that goes on. And people turn away, and then eventually they turn back again.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of Revelation and how it can only be poetry that even begins to explore some of the things that whoever it was who quite wrote it saw. As soon as you start breaking down those images, so you've got this image of Jesus with a sword in his mouth, it becomes silly. It becomes, well, it does a bit. It becomes not silly, but it becomes too almost absurd, the image of it, as you try and put together like a photo fit all the bits that go with that image. Taking space, or taking things you know, and that's what I love about your poem, Adrian, about heaven, because you took things you knew, they were true to you, and thought, will they be there?
Yeah.
Can you read it for us?
Yeah. Well,
and I know some people will know this poem, and
yes. Well, when I'm in heaven, tell me there'll be kites to fly, the kind they say you can control, although I never did, not for long. The kind that spin and spin and spin and spin, then sulk and dive and die and rise again and spin again, and dive and die and rise up yet again. I love those kites. When I'm in heaven, tell me there'll be friends to meet in ancient oak-beamed Sussex pubs, enfolded by the wanton downs, and summer evenings lapping lazily against the shore of sweet, familiar little lands, inhabited by silence or by nonsenses, the things you cannot safely say in any other place. I love those times. When I'm in heaven, tell me there will be seasons when the colours fly, poppies splashing flame through dying yellow, living green, and autumn's burning sadness that has always made me cry for things that have to end, for winter fires that blaze like captive suns but look so cold when morning comes. I love the way the seasons change. Lord, when I'm in heaven, tell me there will be peace at last, that in some meadow filled with sunshine, filled with buttercups and filled with friends, you will chew a straw and fill us in on how things really are. And if there is some harm in laying earthly hope at heaven's door, or in this saying so, well, have mercy on my foolishness, dear Lord. I love this world you made. It's all I know.
And I love that poem, and I love the fact that in the middle of it, I know it's been used on CDs, which don't necessarily exist anymore, but in lots of other ways. It remains your ideas of it. It's very much you, and that's what I feel. It's not that dissimilar. There's space in it, and I love the idea. I do remember, I must say, that when this was going to be on a CD that was going to come out in America, they were very, very unhappy about the Oakbeam Sussex pubs.
They removed it.
They removed it. Yes, I know.
Yes, yeah.
So that was a bit tough.
But also in Kew Gardens during what were the BBC?
Oh, yes.
BBC programme, Songs of Praise.
Yes.
And the floor manager, equivalent of, said to me, Adrian, could you just knock out one of the verses because the timing's a bit difficult. I said, what, any verse? Just any old verse? He said, no, sorry, the timing, we really got to lose a verse.
I know.
So,
so you were not treated like the great poet, really?
No, not at all.
No.
I can't remember which one I knocked out.
You know, Adrian, even as I'm talking about these things, and I laughed about my stupid poem about the pig, but that's what I wrote when I was 11. And I think we can all write things that are just for us and look back at them and maybe think, maybe becoming a poet was not going to be my career. But they are moments in time, you know, thinking about all the deeply distressful poems that people write in their teens, you know, the anguish of love and the deep feelings that you are exploring or desperately trying to explore and have no real vocabulary to explore it in. But they're all part of your
history,
aren't they? So I don't really think that we ought to tear them up.
No, I don't think anything should be torn up. And someone a few years ago said to me, actually it was about something we'd written together, I think, said, oh yes, that poem you wrote that you sometimes read together, I wonder if we could bring it up to date.
Yeah.
And my response to that was no, because for that reason it was of its date, and it fitted well into that date. Yes. And when you write something like that, I mean, I really cannot line myself up with profoundly talented.
Well, you never have. Poets. I mean, your book is called Silences and Nonsenses, isn't it? I mean,
but that feeling that what you've done is to take something that rises up in you and is very important and is a part of you, like you said, it's part of your history. And whether it fits or not, or does or doesn't fit, whether it's sacrilegious, whether it's whatever it is, it survives because it is real, and it's one of the steps that you took. So I don't think you should ever. I mean, there are some very bad and silly things I wrote that I'd probably get rid of, but. No, I think...
Yeah, I don't mean you shouldn't get rid of things. I just mean you should just allow that where they were and what you were thinking. I mean, one of the problems I know, and this applies to songwriters as well, is that, you know, it's easier to write when you are anguished. And I remember a wonderful young singer that we were working with, and he had a beautiful voice and sang really lovely songs, but they were melancholy. And his wife came to one of the performances and she said, why are all your songs so miserable? We have a very happy marriage and we have 2 lovely children, and yet all your songs are so miserable. And he said, well, I can only really, really write things when I feel really, really miserable. And I think that's always been a bit of a tendency, hasn't it?
Yes, that's a bit sad, isn't it?
Yeah, well, he did laugh as well. Yeah. And he said, well, I only really can do it when I'm feeling miserable. I don't know if that applies to other creative arts. I do. You only paint when you're really miserable. I think they would be very dark, all the paintings under that.
I do know they're very hard work. I mean, going back to my hero, Dylan Thomas, described poetry as hewn coils. So you take a block and then you chip and mess with it and change it and turn it into what it's going to be. But the thing with him was that he just flew off every now and then into a world of expression and he didn't feeling that.
And he didn't look at it and say, will they get this? I better tidy this up. Because some of our favourite poems are... Yeah. They just catch something, don't they? Rather than explain it in detail.
His publishers used to write to him and say, can you just explain to us what on earth this means? But
did they?
I don't think he ever did, probably. I'm not
but
sure.
I was thinking about the pain of trying to make things rhyme. You have an idea and it's somewhere there, and that feeling that it's now got to be put down there can be a terrible pitfall for people who don't have that natural ability. And I would take myself and say, well, I wouldn't expect somebody who felt that they got music in them. You'd say, oh, that's great. So would you mind now coming and playing the piano at my concert? Because you've played around with a little song in your head, or with a...
Maybe your pig poem will be the thing that is remembered beyond everything else.
Can I just say, I don't remember it, let alone anybody else remembering it.
The only other thing I was going to say was that I know we've said this many times before, but there is a bit in the Bible, in the New Testament, that says about Jesus, he only ever spoke in parables. He did say other things to his disciples, but people asked him a question and he sent them home with a story, because, as again we've said before, it was something to make your own. So you take a poem away, or a sketch or something, or a story, and you say, where am I in that? How do I genuinely react to what happens in that story? And you're not held back by, hopefully, by prejudices and other
or
people's...
by training,
or anything.
Education, all the other things. You just allow it to be where it is. Yeah. I don't know what you feel, Adrian, but I mean, we've used 2 examples of heaven poems. I'd love to know, even if it's just a line or an idea, how on earth do we begin something like heaven? I don't know.
What do you mean?
I would love to know whether anybody's written anything
I
about
see.
heaven, and how, or even just a line or a word or a you know. I mean, it just would be so interesting.
It would indeed.
Yeah.
And especially when rhyming verse works, it really works.
Of course.
But my tip, for what it's worth, to anyone who wants to write rhyming verse, is write the last line first in the verse, or at least get an idea of what you actually want to say, because very often you find that the last line is dominated by the rhyming that started in the second line.
I know. I wasn't really necessarily thinking that sounds awfully bad homework for anybody listening to this. I was more thinking, if you had a word, or you had a phrase, or you have written something, it would be lovely. Maybe we could put some of these phrases together and have a sort of sounding the Shallows sort of community sort of thing. I know there's a word for that, but I can't think what it is.
I'm not sure we want to air it here. No, I'm sure it would be very, very interesting. Anyway, the nature of poetry, why it's important or is it not important. I remember on Question Time once, a lady in the audience, they were discussing the value of poetry, and she said, I mean, who can honestly say, she said here, that they ever remember any poetry they learned? And one of the people taking part in the panel, who I've always disliked intensely, I won't say who it was, he quoted a poem and said, this is part of the furniture of my mind.
And we find that with people who have dementia, that they remember songs and poems and things that have got right into that have been the furniture of their minds, and it hasn't got lost in the confusions.
Well, we'll see what people say.
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting.
It would.
And maybe next week. You never know. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.